Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the American Scouser TV's Monday Night Podcast. I am Gally, filling in for Timucin, who is somewhere on the Vegas Strip, probably losing all of our AS money. And by that Bickler coin, it isn't much, let me tell you. It's not worth that much, but it trades with amazing currency. And his Michigan hoodie, ready to take his 1 week off before getting all into his Detroit Lions. Mr. Paul Bickler, how are you?
I'm on a bye week. My work doesn't understand that, but it is what it is. I like to imagine Timucin somewhere out of his mind on LSD on the strip, Hunter S. Thompson style with a floral shirt on.
Sir Z says, good evening, gents. BJ says, greetings, gentlemen, and let Bickler make fun of the picture now.
Much better. Much
It is
better.
fair. It does not look like you are a person that is either graduating from and or supporting Clemson.
It only took Michigan taking two transfer portals from Clemson this season for him to do that.
Sir Z says, if Timucin comes back and recommends another potathon, you know why. I will say I was nervous. I did think about that to myself. I was messaging with him before he left. And I thought to myself, I'm not even going to say to him, what stupid ass idea are you going to come back with? Because he goes on vacation and comes back with ways to torment and torture us.
The problem is
yeah, go ahead.
The problem is the pool because he doesn't do the ocean and he doesn't like going out anywhere unless he has to. So he floats in a pool and just is left to his own mind. That's the problem here.
Yeah, that is scary. Both him floating in the pool and, being left to just his mind. And again, I would say this, like, they're off celebrating. And like I would say, they're celebrating however many years it is they've been together. And that is however many years Angie has lived with him without destroying and killing him. Because I spent a weekend with him and thought to myself, I'm not sure if I'm making it to dessert of this fine Turkish dinner. And we didn't. So that lets you know right there. But because we love our listeners and our viewers, we're going to give them their favorite segment. And Sir Z, because I care about you, we're not even going to play the song, mainly because I can't find it quick enough to play it. But we will play that song again at some time. So here's your question, Mr. Bickler. Liverpool played its first ever Premier League match on August 16th, 1992. They lost the fixture 1-0, and they've only faced that side 15 times in the Premier League era. Who was that side that they faced?
Ooh. All right. Let's go. For some reason, I want to say Bolton, but I think we played them way more than 15 times. I'll go. Just think of somebody super fucking random. I'll go. I don't think they've been in the Premier League since '92, though. I'll go Huddersfield. I don't think that's right, but I'll do. I think that's less than 15.
It is not right. Sir Z says, Gally, have I told you you look very young today? Of course I look very young. I didn't play that song. Ryan tried to hint it to you when he said, good evening, fellas. Can't wait for that Nottingham Forest trivia.
Oh.
Yeah, Paul. I'm asking you a question.
Yeah.
I didn't 24 hours before we play a team.
Yeah.
And a team that we've only played 15 total times in the Premier League. And if I'd given you the rest of the paragraph, you probably might have gotten it. But they have only faced 15 times in the Premier League era. But they have played 105 times overall in league play, including the first and second division. Who is that club? It is obviously Forest. So in those 15 Premier League matches, Paul, what is our record?
Oh my God.
Win-loss draws.
I will go Okay, let's go. All right. I'll go 9 wins, 3 draws, 2 losses. That doesn't equal 15. Never mind. 4 draws, 2 losses.
You were close. But it is 7 wins.
Okay.
4 draws, 4 losses.
Okay.
Which kind of makes sense when you think about the fact that we lost there 2 years ago, and then we lost at home to them this year. I think we drew there. They have not been, it's not an easy place to go. So when we get to, really kind of dissecting that match and how we think things will go tomorrow, it'll be interesting when we touch on it. But that question, as always, brought to us by our good friend BJ. Appreciate you, BJ, as always. Great question. There was all kinds of other action to that question, but it would have just confused you and led to the segment taking even longer.
Common sense would say, hey, the question's probably what the team you just played or are going to play, but common sense went out the door when I looked at my schedule this morning. So
I actually joked and said, I'll ask the question. I'll leave what is the record for the second part after it gets the first part right. Then you gave me Bolton and Huddersfield. So
somehow got a chance. Liddell right last. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that was impressive. I'm still one of the more impressive things that you've pulled out was last time. So we did not speak. We have not spoke. You have not been on a pod since the match against Spurs. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I wanted to get your thoughts on the performance itself. Obviously, the young keeper goes in net. He has a blinder of an afternoon. Literally at moments, he looked like Courtois in a Champions League final, making saves, popping up, getting into rebounds, and really just having a very commanding first performance for the club. But they had a lot of other good performances that day by Spurs. Was that match to you? Did it look to you like Liverpool showed up kind of looking to play to a 0-0 draw, and if they scored a goal, great. But if we took this thing home at 0-0, like it almost felt to me like they were playing for 0-0 or a 1-0. And then when they went behind, they were just almost like it was like a sucker punch in the mouth.
Yeah, it felt like we came out like I think this is kind of variations on a theme, right? Like we talked about this United. Like I feel like we came out like looking for a reason to have a response instead of proactively going out and sort of putting our front foot forward and letting them react. And I think we saw this a little bit under the Jurgen, towards the end of the Jurgen era, where it felt like we were really kind of coming out and waiting for them to throw the first punch. So it did feel a little bit like that. I thought it was kind of a strange match, and where like from a Liverpool standpoint, like I didn't think there was a lot of highs or a lot of lows. I thought everyone was just kind of mediocre, with everyone kind of in that shaded like 6 to 5 range in terms of just being like really sort of just average to below average in performance. I think there was a few that were like lower or higher than others, right? But it just felt like a match without a lot of highs and lows from a performance standpoint. I will say that Alisson Becker's injected back into the lineup, and then within 5 minutes of being in the match makes a save that I don't know that Kelleher makes. So nice to have Ali back. But I mean, we can talk individual performances down the road here, but I just thought across the board, I thought it was more about Spurs' effort than it was about anything else. And I just think that's on us.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like this was one of those matches where Jota was really pedestrian up top. Mo was kind of off it. And I think when Mo's not hitting at an operatic high, you definitely miss Soboslai when you see multiple games without him in the lineup. His work rate, his energy. I felt like they controlled the midfield, which is pretty scary when, you're talking about Basuma and Bergvale and, Bentancur being replaced, right, by Brennan Johnson. It's not like they had this power running midfield. Just didn't feel like we were up for it. felt like McAllister and Gravenberch were like one too many starts in a row without a break. You know, it was like it felt like 5 or 6 guys had an off day at once. And I don't know that we've seen that much this year. And maybe that's a testament to the manager, the rotation. Maybe that's just how fit everybody has been. But I think your point of there weren't really a single standout performance. I mean, maybe Endo coming on just because he's asked to do so much coming on when he is for Kwanzaa in that spot. Um, you know, Van Dyke's been really, really good. I thought Bradley was just okay. I think Simicast was okay. And really, I thought Jones was poor again. Like, I don't think Jones has been good for a handful of starts right now. So I guess let me ask you this. Coming back home, down 1-0, what's your level of concern? You feel like at 1-0 we're still, firmly 1 foot to Wembley, or do you think this is something that we have to make sure we come home and probably put out a stronger lineup than the manager was hoping to have to play in that match?
I don't even know if it needs to be a stronger lineup, to be honest with you. I just think it needs to be a strong performance, right? And I think that comes down to a few things, right? Like, I think we really need to make this decision. Like, I don't think it'll come down to this because I think Soboslai will play. But I think Arne Slot really needs to start taking a look at Curtis Jones and figuring out what we want to do here. Because I think, to me, are we playing this formation tailor fit to kind of around what Soboslai does? Or is Curtis Jones just not able to do what we're asking of that position, right? And I think for Curtis Jones, I really think there's probably going to have to be a decision made whether he wants to take a step down at a club and play in an attacking role, or if he wants to be utilized as an all-around midfielder and start, taking a step back and playing in the double pivot, because I think he plays better out of it. I just think right now the minutes are coming in Soboslai's roles. But I don't know that will continue. And I think if he continues to put performances in like that at that spot, I think Arne Slot will find his replacement outside of his team.
Aaron has chimed in and says, hi, guys. I'm absolutely stressed and concerned about us. Oh, Aaron, it wouldn't be a night without you. And we appreciate you. And bring your comments in all you need. If you are concerned and you are stressed, we're here for you. We will be your couch and your counselor for the hour. But we do bill by the minute. So we will send that bill through your YouTube page or your YouTube email account. Just kidding, Aaron. We appreciate your comments. As always, everybody get them in. Sir Z says, Aaron has taken my title. Sir Z, don't you worry. You are still brought to us by blood pressure medication. So you will always have the first title of being the first person to get stressed out or nervous in each and every single one of our matches. So I guess my thing with this is I do think the performance needs to be a little bit better. I think that the lineup will be different. I think when it comes down to Jones's, and I think we can kind of transition. Let's transition over to talking about the Accrington Stanley match, because I felt like it was interesting what Slot ended up doing with the Accrington Stanley match, and more importantly, kind of with his lineup and his tactics. And I'm wondering, do you think, Paul, it could be a little bit of foreshadowing? So first things first, give me your opinion when you saw the lineup. What were your initial thoughts, whether it be the starters, the bench, and how did you think this setup was going to be when you first saw it?
I mean, I was excited to see Gamoa, right? That was my main thought here. I was also excited to see Morton back in a lineup and see how he did. I mean, out of the gate, it looks like when I saw it, I thought it was probably a 4-3-3. But I wasn't 100% sure. I thought maybe Morton was playing sort of like an anchor role here with Soboslai and Elliott off of him. But the more that match sort of morphed, the more it seemed like they really were trying to utilize Harvey and in Mo's right wing role, which apparently Arne Slot took the sticky note off his computer that Klopp left for him that said doesn't work. because we saw more why it doesn't work, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I guess my thing but was this more about, and we're going to get to talking about some of these players in a bit, Elliott, Morton, Jones again. But it almost felt to me in some ways like he said, "Hey, I know I got to start the kid, right? I have to start him in this match because again, it's almost like the Chiesa thing. If I'm not starting him here, does he ever start ever?" And come to find out, Chiesa was ill, and that's why he didn't start. He was originally supposed to start, but when he couldn't, that's why they ended up going with Rio. I feel like that's a little bit of bullshit myself, but we'll see. Elliott on the right, and of course, it was basically Elliott on the right, and it was Nunez and Jota through the middle together. And I guess my question is was this the manager taking his first opportunity in a while to go up against the side he knows was going to play with some form of a low block, was going to play a lot like some of this competition? Because, we're going to have 5 or 6 sides come to Anfield in the next 2 months and not play that much different than what Accrington Stanley did. Do you think this was a little bit of him getting used to playing with 4 attackers and even kind of seeing what he has when he plays Jota and Darwin together through the middle? And at times they did look like they had a decent thing going, and the partnership and the cutback. Like, could you see this being almost what he does with Darwin, both as a sub and in his spot starts, to try to get the most out of him? Because he's much more of a playmaker than he is a goal scorer at this point in the setup.
I think so. I mean, if you're asking me, I don't know if he does this without, like, I think part of this lineup and this formation was based on the fact that he's getting creative with who's starting here, right? So I think that certainly played a part of it. But I also think, I mean, it would be good planning to sit here and be like, hey, at some point we're going to have to consistently beat a low block in possession. And so, like, what do these pieces look like in the middle? I mean, because both Jota and Nunez seem to do better when they're sort of central, even though we see Nunez do well out on the left. I think the problem is that he's going to be stuck behind the 8 left wingers we have. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely think it could be definitely sort of with one eye to the future, right? What does this look like when we're trying to beat a low block? But I think it's partly trying to creatively put a lineup together that works well together based off of what he's seen in training in these mixed match parts, because you're mixing academy talent and first teamers here. And so I think you have to be a little bit creative in terms of where they're playing and how they're playing, so that you're not putting any of these kids sort of isolated in a situation. Like, I just don't know if he trusted Rio to hold down a left wing by himself, right? So I think you're kind of putting some of these players in the position to get help as well.
Yeah, I definitely think there had a lot to do with that. Let's fast forward a bit here to later in that match, right? As you start to go, I think that this was, for me, this was Kwanzaa's best performance since Arne Slot took over. Feels to me like he put in a very senior and mature shift. Looked like he was a leader. He looked like he almost took the challenge of being the only real first choice center back or first choice defender in the back line, right? Anyone who started a match at any point this year. So he kind of took that mantle. I thought he was really, really good. I also thought that once again, Endo just proved that he's probably the most senior veteran leader on the team. And he just does a job. And whether it's the job that Timucin or Arne Slot system calls for, it feels like anytime he's asked to do anything, he's the first to raise his hand. And he's the first to just put in a professional shift.
Yeah, I love Endo. He's kind of the ultimate utility player. You feel like if you wanted him to start up top as a striker, you probably could. Like, he just has a little bit of all that. Like, I love him. I think he's obviously super undervalued. He's obviously what you want in a squad player. I think he's probably as important for this side off the pitch as he is on the pitch. But it's always just a super huge bonus when you can take a guy who can boss a midfield and put him back into a back line. He doesn't really seem to like miss a beat there. And I don't know, I was thinking about this, like right when in the Spurs match, Kwanzaa goes down, not feeling well. He gets subbed off the pitch, 20 minutes in. Endo comes in. No drop off whatsoever. I don't know if that says more about Kwanzaa or Endo, but I'll take it as a positive for Endo.
Let's talk a little bit about Tyler Morton. What did you see from him in this match? It was a tough one because he wasn't asked to do too much right in the middle of the park there. What were your thoughts there? Where do you see Morton? And then we'll continue to talk a little bit more about some of the other subs. Then we'll come back to Morton's future with the club a little later when we talk about the transfers and things. But what was his play like for you? Because for me, it was a little less. It wasn't as impressive as he's been in a few of his other performances that I thought allowed him to show a little more. But maybe that was being on the ball and having opportunities to add into the play a little bit more than so deep in that Maka role.
It's a tough one to call because I feel like when you have these matches that are a little bit disjointed, it makes it hard to evaluate. And I just felt like he wasn't really involved much. He only lost one of his challenges between his aerial and dual challenges. So I feel like he did fairly well from just an account standpoint. I just felt like for me, it felt like he was struggling to sort of find his way into the pitch and sort of be a part of what was this company. It felt like things were happening around him instead of things sort of flowing through him at any point in this match.
Yeah, I think that to me, it looked like a guy who maybe was thinking a little too much, who was trying to take his moment too literally, he wanted to make an impact. And I think this is what Brian Shelton's saying here. Morton had less of an impact than I expected. I think McConnell had a better showing in this match. And that's, small sample size. I think McConnell played for 30 minutes. And at that point, the match was pretty much over. Let's talk a little bit about Harvey, both first half and second half when he's pushed more centrally. I know Timucin was saying in the Discord he really felt bad for Harvey, constantly disjointed, constantly pushed into an alternate position, not playing in his best position. So I guess I'll throw this back to you, Paul, with your question about Jones. Does Harvey not fit that Soboslai role either? Because it doesn't feel like Arnschlat has any interest in playing him there. And if he doesn't fit that role, and he's not a right winger in the ilk of Mo, and, to your joke about Jurgen's sticky note that says doesn't work, is this an example of the side we are today and the tactics we're playing? We all said in the summer there'll be some guys who don't make it, and there'll be and it'll probably be a couple that shock us. Could the biggest shock be that it's Harvey Elliott that's on his way with Darwin Nunez to another club at a probably a window or two away?
I think this is the weird conundrum and probably the hardest thing that Slot has to face. I think if you're to get him in private, give him a truth serum. The truth is he has 3 Scousers in this team that came up through the youth academy, and none of them do what he wants them to do from a tactical standpoint. You have 2 that don't have a true position in the system, and you have 1 that wants 100,000 more a week than he's probably worth. So, I just think that there's a real conundrum there. I think the Harvey thing strikes me a little bit like the Coutinho thing. Not big enough or fast enough to play up top. Not good enough defensively to play sort of recessed in the midfield. And I don't think he does what you want in an attacking mid in this system. So could he adjust and do it? Potentially, yeah. It continually feels like we're taking a square peg and we've got it jammed into a round hole about halfway and we're just trying to push it through. That's what it feels like And I do feel bad for him because I do feel like every time he's gotten an extended run, we've seen a horrific injury. We've seen something go out, somebody come in and he catch fire, and then he's out with a soft tissue injury. So we've seen him sort of batted back several times. But like, to me, it just continually feels like we're trying to find a home position for him and Curtis Jones. I don't know either one of them fits the system.
Yeah, I feel like, if to your point, I think if Jones would accept playing, the understudy to Gravenberch, he could be really good at the job. I don't know that he wants to do it. And then again, the manager always seems to push him forward, but that could be because he knows he can't play Dom every single minute of every match with how hard he plays. And he doesn't have a like-for-like replacement, which is where I kind of asked that question earlier of, is this kind of trying guys out, whether it's, Nunez, Gakpo, Jota, playing players in the hole. Maybe eventually we might see Chiesa in that position playing off the striker, because they just offer something a little bit different. It's not Dom, but it still gives you some of that flair and some of that attacking prowess and the power that I just don't believe that Harvey can do, and I just don't think the manager actually believes. Like, I've never felt like, even when he talks about him, it doesn't feel like he talks about Harvey the way he talks about even Jones or Gravenberch or any of his other senior players. It's more like he thinks of him as like he's, a more senior Ben Doak than he is, his fifth midfielder. But maybe I'm just being critical because I'm not seeing him play.
No, and I think what we're seeing though is, like, I think this sort of like midfield role that Szoboszlai's in requires the pace and the physicality of Jurgen Klopp's front line, right? And so when you say Harvey didn't have that to play right wing or left wing up top, like, the same holds true. He doesn't have that to play the role that we're asking Szoboszlai to play. So it's just like, we're looking for those same qualities. We're just looking from a different starting position on the pitch. And I think that's where it really kind of like comes down. And like, you're not going to play him you're not going to play Harvey in a double pivot. Like, so like, I just think it's just, at the end of the day, he doesn't have the pace and physicality to play that role, like in a way that I think that Jurgen was able to accommodate in his system when he had him in the midfield.
And obviously a ton has been talked about Fede Chiesa, right? A ton has been spoken about him, from how soft he is to why he can't get on the pitch to the manager hates him to he's angling to leave. The player has always said, I want to play here. I really enjoy it. He does seem to always be smiling and look like he's enjoying his time, but who enjoys, in and out of training and being sick and tired and not really kind of being able to get up to full fitness and catch up with the league. There is no questioning the fact that he does have the football and talent. You can just see it. And I thought Kazi made a great point on our post-match show where he said, if you judge a footballer by his decision-making, that guy's an A-plus footballer because he never seems to put a foot in wrong. Like, he makes right runs, he drives at players, he takes on defenders, he crosses in good spots. He's always looking for a shot. He gets another post, and then he gets his goal. What did you like about the performance from Chiesa? Were there things that you didn't like? Do you see him actually being able to put this together and play a role? I'm not going to say a starting role or a key role, but a role in the running, because he looks like he could be a very, very interesting part if it worked.
All right, I'm going to say something a little bit out of the box here. I think that Chiesa, outside of Mo Salah, is the most technically proficient attacking player in this entire roster.
I'd agree with that.
I think he's incredibly intelligent, which is why he's in the right places that he needs to be. And I think this is – I wanted to bring this up later, but I want to work this in the same conversation. A lot of what I like about Chiesa, even though they're built completely different, is what I like about Dan's. They're in the right spot in the right places scoring those goals because they're smart footballers, and they sort of like anticipate where these plays are going to end based on the position of other players on the pitch. And I think his game IQ is so high that he consistently finds himself in those scoring positions, very similar to Jota. But I think he's a taller, rangier, and I think he's a more athletic, and I think he's more technically proficient. I just think that, it's going to take some time for him to fit into this lineup, to get sort of the game speed and physicality of the Premier League. I don't want to speculate on why he's, what's taking him so long to see game time. Unlike a lot of people who just assume it's because Slot doesn't like what he sees in training. I remember the days and how long it took Klopp to bed new players in. So I'm just going to wait and see what happens here. But I still am as excited about the potential of him in this lineup as I was when he was signed.
Yeah, I think people just forget before the massive ACL, MCL, PCL injury that he suffered, that coming off that 2020 Euros, that he was literally considered like a top 3 or 4 player under 23 in all of Europe. He was by far the top most important piece of that Italian national team.
Yep.
He was the focal point of their attack. He had just signed the monster deal to go to Inter. Like it was all on the up for him, or he had just gone to Juventus. I mean, it was all on the up for him. They were talking 100 million to pry him away. To me, he was everything. He was like a notch below like what people were talking about Mbappe at the time. And people acted like he was going to lose all of that just because he lost his quick twitch for one season. And I think he makes up for it with, an A+ brain. He's in the right place. He also is completely 2-footed. He has the exact same shot with his right or his left foot. He just always seems to be in the right position. And he constantly makes the right pass. And I think when you make the right pass, that's when you earn the trust and the respect of your teammates. And I think, to me,
that's probably the difference. I was going to say that's a difference between a player like Chiesa and a player like Darwin. I think Darwin, when you look at Darwin, he only had something like 36 touches the entire match. That means people don't trust you with the ball.
100%. Yeah. They're not giving you the ball. They're not looking to get you the ball in positions to make things happen because they question what will happen. Yeah. Where I think with Chiesa, they know exactly where it is. He finds others and makes them better. And I think if he were to get to consistently play, it's sad because they probably won't play a lot, because he probably would be one of those guys that Trent would absolutely love, because he would figure out like where to drop into space and create space. They would have some really good overlaps. Like I feel like they could do a lot of really good things on the right. It'll be interesting to me to see if he's able to maybe work his way into that backup position when it comes to giving Szoboszlai minutes, if it doesn't end up being Curtis Jones moving forward. Because I do think there is a world where you could play Chiesa and Jota through the middle together and have a Gakpo on the left and Mo on the right and have a really, really dynamic, interchangeable front four.
Sure.
And still not lose too much on the defensive side. So you brought up Jayden Danns. I did want to touch on him quickly. Great to see him get another opportunity. Great to see him once again get on the score sheet. I couldn't agree with you more. We talked about this in our post-match as well. It's not just winning the ball where he does and making the good pass. It's following the ball into the box. It's setting himself up as if to think, if Chiesa takes this shot, the keeper will have only one option and the ball will come here. There's something about being in the right place and then being able to finish it. He clearly has the ability to finish. He clearly has the ability to score. But we always get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Does it help him to sit on the bench and practice all week long and not play, but 15 to 20 more minutes? Or should the club seriously be thinking about putting him in a positive environment somewhere in the championship for him to go up against tall center backs and actually learn his craft over the next 3.5 to 4 months to come back next summer and see if he's ready to actually play a role? Or should they keep him around with the idea that he's still a year plus away?
So I think the club, I think that really depends on the loan moves that are available, right? I don't want to say I think like you loan him no matter what. I think it depends on where he's going and who's there, right? Because I think obviously he's got to have some minute guarantees, but I also think he needs to be playing in a system that Arne Slot, we had the luxury under Jurgen where we had a number of assistants leave that had worked within the system and the framework of that. Through the academy closely with Jurgen, right? And so our players kind of were always farmed to those teams, right? So that was helpful because they were learning a similar system. So I think if Arne Slot has that ability to find a home that does what he needs them to do and develop the way that he wants to develop them, he would. But I want to caveat that I think a lot of people emphasize that like the loan minutes to get minutes, competitive minutes at game speed in a lower level, like are always like the precedent. I don't really believe that because I think you're taking a young player and you're moving him away from everything he knows as his home, right? So you're taking him out and you're putting him somewhere that is not necessarily guaranteed for him to bet in, both from the player personalities to the city to him getting minutes. So it is a calculated gamble. And I think that there is some really, really huge benefits to him staying home in Liverpool in training with the first team, if he is indeed training with that first team. But I think those are sort of the things you got to weigh. I don't think it's an easy decision, black and white, when you look at these players. I think you really need to look at where the loan opportunity is available, who it's with, what the minutes look like, what the team looks like. All those things sort of factor in. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having a kid stay home and practice with the first team.
So here we are. Transfer window is open. We are in January. We already know, Madrid made their cursory calls on Trent and it didn't work. And obviously it created a storm in a teacup for 48 hours. And then, we had the United match and we've dealt with that now. And it seems like it's kind of being put to bed for now. You have talk about, there were some rumblings about maybe even Elliott looking to angle and find his way out. There's been talk about Tyler Morton leaving, Dan's leaving. Of all the players at the club right now, do you see a player who you feel should be looking to make a move out of the club?
And you're talking about like academy or first team?
And first teamers. I mean, at this point, Tyler Morton's basically a first teamer, whether he, like if you're Tyler Morton, are you, he made some comments after the match, I have to be realistic. I love this club. I want my opportunities to be at this club. But at the end of the day, isn't it at this point in Tyler Morton's career, at 22 years of age, you have to know that you're getting more than 60 minutes against Accrington Stanley 4 months into the season?
Yeah, I think there's a few of these players. I think Tyler Morton's one of them for sure. I think if you look across the board, I would say probably 90% of these players are not going to crack this starting 11 regularly, right? So I think he's one of them. I still like, if I'm Harvey, I've got one eye out, because I just don't know how many minutes he's going to continue to get in this system. Like, I really don't. Like, you're third down the order in that one spot, and you're confined to that one spot because you're not going to start up top. So I think Harvey's another one. But yeah, there's a few of them. I don't know. It's been a while since I've looked at that academy list, right? So, but like, if you're past the 21s, right? Like, you've got to be talking about that next step.
Yeah, I feel like if I'm Morton, if I'm McConnell, I'm probably thinking about it. Now, what if you're a player like we saw Sir Z mentions, Sir Z says he would keep him while we're still in 4 comps. We sent Gordon to Norwich and that failed, and looks like Batricic may do too. Would love for Dan's to have experience of being around the title winners. He had the experience of sitting around a title winner. The difference is I don't think he gets to play in any more of these League Cup or even FA Cup matches going forward. Um, I I love the idea of the being around the title winners, but let me tell you right now, I think every single player who's ever gone out on loan to one of these smaller clubs, you learn a lot more getting your teeth kicked in the championship by, you know, grown ass men's center backs than you do training 7-on-7 drills and watching Virgil van Dijk's dietary needs in the canteen. I get it, but like these guys all say you learn by doing, and I think senior minutes can't. I I just don't think game minutes can be replicated as we've always talked about. Um, and I just feel like there's a big opportunity there for them. Last one, Paul, we'll talk a little bit here on transfers. There's been some talk. There's been a lot of chatter about Darwin, obviously. There's been some links to a couple different attacking players and strikers potentially coming in. Um, Obviously, I think for any attacker to come in, the Napoli Georgian winger was always a pipe dream in my mind. I understand why Liverpool would kick the tires and stay engaged the way they did with Diaz and think if we can pip and get in here, we will. But that always felt like a pipe dream. There are some rumblings that there was a bid from Saudi for Darwin Nunez in the like 70 million region. It is his former manager's team, his former manager from Benfica. There has been talk of it. I have finally succumbed to the idea that Darwin Nunez is not going to make it at this club. I tried to defend him for a while. I always felt like it made the most sense for a move to happen in the summer. If that's a legitimate offer, don't you think they would have accepted it today? To me, that feels like the type of money you take.
100%. Yeah, because like, and I'm with you. Like, I still, as long as Darwin is wearing a Liverpool kit, I will always pull for him to do well, right? I will always pull for him to succeed because I think there's a lot to like there, right? But the longer that this continues, the less engaged he feels with this team, right? Like you can feel the play around him. Like, his teammates don't trust him in big spots. The ball's not played to him when it should be. The manager is playing him less. Like it seems like everything is trending out, not in. So yeah, if that offer was legit, I would feel like that would happen regardless of whether we had a replacement lined up or not. Like regardless of ins or out.
Yeah, so he's saying Edwards apparently wants more to compensate for the 10 million we have to pay Benfica, which listen, they definitely made some moves in the past that are interesting like that. I do think if he can, and there's been a lot of talk. I don't even know how to pronounce the guy's name. It started to come up yesterday. The Greek center forward who's at like Nuremberg, and he is a really, really like dynamic young striker. I could see it, understanding why maybe he'd be like one for the future. He fits the age profile.
I just don't. I was just going to say Semenyo's today's big link, but
yeah, and Semenyo makes sense too. And there's been talk about that because they're also Bournemouth's interested in Ben Doak, and potentially that Doak would be kind of like a replacement for Semenyo. I like the Semenyo shout. I always get nervous when you get like these right wing lights because it's like, don't give me this like hedging our bets here, please. I don't have 3 months of Mo Salah's not signing another contract talk. I just don't have it in me. I guess my question to you is, Paul, is will we ever hit a window where we need a player and literally actually target a player in the position we need? Because it does feel like the side is as good as Endo's played. It feels like we're short a center back, and it feels like we're short a midfielder. Yet everyone we're linked to are attackers, and the only players we're talking about selling are attackers. If we can get more attackers in.
Yeah, this feels like a problem. This feels like a problem ever since we had Edwards, right? And so like Edwards is back now. So like Does that improve? Like, I don't know. It feels like more of the same, right? And like, it feels like, you know, what I'm curious to see, and I think what we will really know and understand is after we get an off season of Edwards and Arnschlat really sort of working together, because you know through this season they're putting a game plan together. So I think that we'll know more after this summer when we see how things get like are addressed, right? And I'm cautiously optimistic that like Arnschlat will do a better job of like sort of communicating and working with Edwards on what he wants and what Edwards is presenting versus there seemed to be a pretty decisive rift, especially towards like, you know, before Edwards left between Klopp and our administrative teams and what needed to be done.
Yeah, I just still blows my mind that they haven't bought a defensive player since they acquired Konate.
It is wild. Yeah.
That to me is just like, you know, it makes you realize like, wow.
Was Konate after Costas?
Yeah, Costas was here before Konate because Costas signed that second extension. He's been here a while. He just only appeared 8 times because the last manager didn't really.
I don't know why I thought he was after Konate.
But yeah, it's just a crazy one to me. I saw that the other day. I was like, wow, that is really, really amazing. But you know, if you just turn on Twitter, all you got to do, and you can see all these wonderful saves by a keeper that doesn't even play for us. And people are like, look at this player Liverpool's getting. It's one save, people. He made one save. It's a highlight reel save. But God, can we just tone it down? But let's get in, talk a little bit about tomorrow's match. Liverpool travel, and we'll be taking on Nottingham Forest at the City Ground. Not an area that we have done very well in our tenure in the Premier League. Also not somewhere that has been easy for any Premier League side to go. So, Paul, from a lineup standpoint, I have to assume you believe this will be our best 11?
Best 11. Yeah.
And that still includes Trent.
Still includes Trent.
That was a joke, but I did see a lot of people saying, like, why was Trent starting this match? And did Trent start this match almost like he sat the match against Spurs, like almost off the United match? Was this Arnschlat like sending him a message that Bradley would be playing? Bradley couldn't start, as the manager said, because he was just too nervous to have him go 2 days in a row that quick. 2 matches after injury. So there's no chance for me that Trent doesn't start. That was tongue in cheek for all those that don't understand sarcasm. So I'm assuming we're talking Trent, Virgil, Konate, and Robertson, McAllister, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, Gakpo, Diaz, Mo. That's your starting 11?
It is. I wonder how, I wouldn't hate this. I wonder how would we react, though, if there was not Konate starting as a center back and it was Endo.
I don't think there's any chance of it, and I think that's why Konate was wrapped up in wool and not even placed on the bench against Accrington Stanley. I know you love you some Endo. And
I do.
I mean, but on the other hand, I feel like if coming off of that performance by Kwanzaa, if you then start.
Look, I'm not saying it's rational. I'm saying irrationally, I think it would be great. And I would love it. And I would love to see the shitstorm it would would cause. But I don't think it's likely. I'm just putting it out there. More put it out there just to see your reaction to anything else.
So there is no Darwin Nunez in this match because he's suspended for yellow card accumulation. So we don't have to worry about coming up with excuses why he doesn't start and or shouldn't be brought on to play. Do you think that with no Nunez, there's a chance Dan's gets a spot on the bench as reward for his goal and his cameo? Or is this probably one where, you know, you get Jota, Chiesa, Jones, and Elliott and the senior players and most likely there's not a spot for Dan's in this situation on the bench.
I think there's more of a chance Endo starts at center back than Dan's is on the bench.
So, how do you see the match playing out from a standpoint? Obviously, we know Chris Wood is a handful. Morgan Gibbs White, James Ward-Prowse, you know where they come at you and kind of how they get at you. They come with good defense. Murillo, Milenkovic, Sells solid at the back. Like, what's the area of the pitch you're most worried about, or where do Liverpool and Slot have to make sure their tactics are right to make sure that we see through what are, a really important 3 points if they could secure them?
I mean, I think the main thing is like I want to run this match from a possession standpoint, but I also want to understand that like what we do well as a system and a team plays into what Forest does well. So it's really tough because like you want to play our brand of football, but you also want to understand that with that comes some severe limitations and some severe risk against Forest, who likes to counterattack, right? So if we get sucked too far up into that final third, like my concern is how do we respond and defend from wide positions against players like Alonga and the pace they have between Gibbs White, Alonga. I'm trying to think of like who am I missing? The other striker, Hudson-Odoi. Yeah, like they've got 3 guys to pace the burn, not play across the top, right? And then one who has like 34 for a pace, and Chris Wood, who's probably 2.5 miles behind you on the counter, but we'll run through whatever. So like my worry is defend wide areas and how we do that and giving up set pieces. Those are like my major concerns against them. I think we have the quality to beat them by multiple goals and to do it well. I do think they're a great side, and I do think they're great defensively. So I think as good as they are defensively, like I'm less worried about their defense and more worried about what their offense looks like when we're trying to beat that defense.
Yeah, I mean, people forget that's what happened in the first match, right? Like we were pressing, trying to get the winner. Trent left way too much room by going way too forward, and I think it was Hudson-Odoi snuck in and basically scored the goal against the run of play. And next thing you know, it's the 80th minute. You're down 1-0, and you're like, shit. They did exactly what they came here to do. They kept it at 0-0 till 75th minute, and they pushed for the winner. And I think they could do that again. It took late drama last year. What was it? The Darwin 90+8 winner. I think there was the def header off the Maka flick. So I could see this being another one of those types. For me, the most important thing is I'd really like to see them get back to a little bit of that like controlled possession base, kind of killing out the game. I'd like to see them get their foot on top of the ball again, kind of take control early, score a goal. It was never going to be as easy as August and September made it look like the season was going to be.
Right.
But wouldn't it be nice to not feel like it has all through like December and January so far? Because it does start to feel like, a little bit of the allure we had at the beginning. Maybe there's some more tape on us, right? And the manager, we can herald the manager for making in-game adjustments and making small tweaks, but other managers get paid too. Like, I love that like adage, like those managers get paid to do a job too, and they're trying to figure out ways to exploit us. And I think right now they're finding a little joy in that. So I would love to see a little bit more of a reserved approach from the fullbacks. I genuinely think that's what the manager's been asking the fullbacks to do, which is what I think has led to some of Robertson looking uncomfortable at times, because he wants to naturally just go forward and get on the front foot and make things happen. And I think this manager is asking him not to do that. And I think the kid on the other side doesn't have it in him to not do what he thinks is what makes him him.
To not play midfield?
Yeah, I mean, we saw it you saw it on hand against Accrington, like,
Yep.
because he wasn't required to defend, he just started to invert in, and he was basically playing the double pivot. Like,
Yep.
Jurgen was still here that entire match, and I was thinking to myself, I can't imagine the manager has asked him to do this today. Maybe a
Right.
little bit more than normal because he was playing more with one at the back there, more, with kind of just Morton, but it still felt like at times, like, I mean, I remember at one point I'm like, Trent is in the left back position. What is going on here? Like, what is he doing? And he's just drifting over. And I mean, it was a great shot. Again, I just question in a match like this, it'll make sense to me if we do have a lead and the manager yanks him on 70 minutes. If it's a 1-0 lead and he goes to Bradley to kind of see the thing out, because I do think there are moments where there's still a question about whether or not he's thinking about scoring a goal or creating a world-class assist or drawing a foul outside of the penalty box, when really he should really be worrying about tracking the midfielder and the winger, who are his responsibility, that are behind him,
Well, Kelly,
with these two
he's got a
standbys.
balloon d'or to win. I mean, he's got to get up there and score some goals. Like,
It is how you get those awards, isn't it? And just ask Mo Salah. Just score the goals, get the assists, win the Ballon d'Or. I think that's how it says. So, Paul, I will ask you, what is your prediction for tomorrow's match?
you know what? I'll flip this reverse fixture. I'll say 1-0, we win.
I love it. My heart, I'm not going to lie, my heart is saying go with the 2-0 on special, get back to it, get a goal early, get another, kill it off, see it late. I don't know why my brain is telling me that is asking an awful lot and that this could end up being a draw type fixture. I think if you told me that they were going to score, I'd probably sign off on a draw right now. But because I have confidence in the defense showing up and really putting in a performance, to your point, having Allison back, I think, is crucial to the success of the side and to the overall well-being and health of the defense. So I'm going to go with the slot special and say 2-0 win. Mo gets a goal, and there's one scored by a random. Like, maybe this is a Soboslai game. Maybe this is Chiesa off the bench and he kind of builds on it, because he does come across to me like a player that he's going to play on his confidence. He's going to play on his flair. And, the teammates were so made up for him when he scored that goal. And I think that's how he really does like it. And he's probably struggling here at Liverpool, not being able to perform and train. When the teammates are that excited for you when you score a goal, they've been waiting for it too. And they probably see the talent every day in training. And they're probably thinking to themselves, this could be, a real big feather in our cap if we can get him going. So, last question for you, Paul. Before we are back on here next week, will Liverpool have a new player in the ranks by next Monday?
I'm going to go with no, because I'm used to being disappointed.
It's a fair point by you. It's basically been the story of our lives, I think, going on about 11 consecutive transfer windows at this moment. And somehow this side just keeps kicking on. What else keeps kicking on? Our YouTube channel. If you haven't already, get on over there. Give it a subscription. Hit all the like buttons. As Timucin would say, press all the buttons except for the one with the thumb going down. Don't forget to share it. Don't forget to also interact with us on Blue Sky, X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Find us, interact with us. If you want to get involved, before I let you go, Paul, someone in the chat earlier asked, are you rooting for Ohio State or Notre Dame? Someone has to win this national title. I think I know. You would rather the heathens, you'd rather the Catholic heathens rather than the sons of bitches from Ohio.
Catholics over convicts, baby.
Catholics over convicts. That is a prime way to end this show. And who knows, might have just found a name for the pod. All right, everybody, have a wonderful week. We will be back next week for Bickler and myself. We appreciate you. Enjoy the match tomorrow. Don't forget to check out the pre-match and post-match. We'll